is a stillness older than time, resting at the center of your being. It is not moved by appearances, nor swayed by the tides of circumstance. It has watched every joy you've ever felt, every sorrow, every thought, as they rose and fell like waves across an eternal ocean, and yet it remained unmoved, not indifferent, but infinite. That stillness is you. Not the you with a name, not the you with a past, not the you who fears or longs or strives, but the one who sees, the one who watches, the silent witness, the timeless observer. We have been trained to identify with the experience as if we are only the dancer and not also the floor beneath our feet, the music in the air and the one watching from the balcony. We mistake our roles for our reality, our emotions for our essence. But you are not the passing moment. You are that which perceives the moment. You are not the character on the stage. You are the space in which the entire theater arises. When you begin to live as the observer, life ceases to be something that happens to you. It becomes something that arises within you. You are no longer tossed in the current. You become the riverbed itself, grounding the waters as they move. And suddenly, nothing is personal. Nothing is lost. Even pain becomes sacred because you are not inside the storm. You are the sky that holds it. Can you see this? Can you feel the vastness within you? The one who watches your thoughts is not your thoughts. The one who sees your fear is not afraid. The one who feels your sorrow is not broken. It merely observes, lovingly, patiently, endlessly. The Tao Te Ching says, the great Tao flows everywhere. All things are born from it, yet it does not create them. That is the way of the observer. It allows all things. It holds all things. But it clings to nothing. We live in a culture addicted to motion. Do more, say more, prove more, but your power is not in your doing. It is in your being. The observer does not need to fix what it sees. It simply sees with clarity, and that clarity, that presence becomes the healing itself. Think of the sun. It does not chase shadows. It does not fight the night. It simply shines. And in its presence, all that is false disappears. You are that Sunday. You are the light that reveals, not through judgment, but through being. Even the darkest fear dissolves in your awareness when you do not feed it with identity. Your thoughts are not you. They are events, like birds passing through the sky, like weather shifting across a landscape. You are the sky. You are the awareness in which all events rise and fall. And when you root yourself in that awareness, the world changes, not because the world changed, but because your seeing has changed. This is not detachment. This is deeper presence. Detachment is resistance. Observation is love. To observe without agenda, to witness without defense, is the highest form of compassion. When you look at yourself, your story, your patterns, your longings with this gentle gaze, something miraculous occurs. You stop identifying with the wound and begin to see the wisdom it contains. You stop clinging to the outcome and start flowing with the truth. Jesus said, be in the world, but not of it. This is the path of the observer. It is not withdrawal from life. It is the most profound engagement with it. When you stop being consumed by your story, you begin to participate from your soul. Your actions become extensions of awareness, not reactions of fear. Imagine standing in a forest, watching the wind move through the trees. You do not rush to stop it. You do not judge the leaves that fall or the branches that sway. You simply behold. That is how the soul sees life, not as a problem to solve, but as a dance to witness. You are not here to conquer life. You are here to see it, to know it, to feel it without being lost in it. The ego says, I am what I do, what I have, what others think of me, but the observer says, I am. That is enough. That is everything. You don't have to earn peace. You only have to stop resisting the present. You don't have to chase truth. You only have to become quiet enough to hear it. It is not hidden. It is not far. It is behind every breath, inside every pause, beneath every emotion. The observer is never absent. It is only forgotten. When you awaken as the observer, you no longer say, I am sad. You say, sadness is arising. You no longer say, I am angry. You say, anger is moving through me. And in that subtle shift of language, you reclaim your freedom. You stop being defined by your experiences and you begin to define them by how you hold them, how you bless them, how you allow them to pass. Rumi wrote, try to be a sheet of paper with nothing on it. Be a spot of ground where nothing is growing, where something might be planted. A seed, possibly, from the absolute. The observer is that sacred ground. Empty, open, fertile, ready to receive, unattached to what comes or goes. You are the canvas, not the paint. You are the silence, not the noise. You are the eternal witness, not the fleeting form. And the more you live from this knowing, the lighter life becomes. You stop trying to hold the world together. You let it unfold, and you watch, and you trust. Trust that there is a rhythm to all things, a harmony that does not need your control, only your awareness. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every death and birth, they all arise within the same field of consciousness. You are that field. You are not in the universe is in you. You do not have to strive to become whole. You already are. You do not have to fix your soul. It is untouched. What you call healing is not the mending of a broken self. It is the unveiling of the unbroken witness. Even in suffering, the observer remains. Even in confusion, the observer sees clearly. Even in death, the observer is eternal. That is who you are. Not what happens to you, but that which can never be harmed. And so I invite you, gently but urgently, to return. Return to the seat of awareness. Not tomorrow, not when you've read more or done more or healed more. Now, in this breath, in this silence. Close your eyes and feel the one who sees. Without effort, without thought, just presence. That is home, that is truth, that is you. You are the observer of the universe, not just a participant. You are the mirror in which stars behold themselves. You are the stillness in which time forgets its name. And in this knowing, may you walk the world not as a seeker, but as one who remembers. Not with answers, but with presence. Not with noise, but with depth. Not with fear, but with light. You are not here to react. You are here to see. And in that seeing, everything transforms. There is a sacred intelligence that guides the tides, unfurls the petals of a rose without resistance, and carves canyons with the mere flow of water. That same intelligence animates you. It breathes you without your command. It dreams through you even as you sleep. And yet, we so often forget we become hypnotized by the noise, entranced by the forms, pulled into the drama of the stage, forgetting that we are not merely players, but the vastness in which the entire play is witnessed. When you live as the observer, you become rooted in the eternal while still walking in the temporary. You do not deny your humanity, you sanctify it. You do not escape the moment you illuminate it from within. You begin to see that the experiences you once called problems were not obstacles, but invitations, each a whisper from the universe asking, will you awaken now? And if you listen closely, there is no pain that does not come bearing a gift. There is no loss that does not reveal a deeper presence. Even your tears, especially your tears, water the soil of your becoming. They remind you that your soul is still alive beneath the armor. The observer allows them to fall, not as weakness, but as sacred rain, returning you to your source. Imagine now that your life is not a task to be completed, but a masterpiece already in progress. You do not need to rush to the end. The artist does not panic to finish the painting. The joy is in the creating. The sculptor does not mourn the block of marble, he rejoices, knowing what lives within it. You are both the artist and the art. The observer is the part of you that knows the chisel is not destruction, it is revelation. The old identities, the false layers, the masks, they fall away not because you hate them, but because you outgrow them. You begin to see that clinging to them is like clutching smoke. They were never who you were, only who you thought you needed to be. The moment you stop defending them, your soul can finally breathe again. And in that breath, the light of who you truly are begins to shine. It is not a loud light. It does not demand to be seen. It does not compete or compare. It is soft, like the glow of dawn. It is the kind of light that transforms simply by being. It blesses without intention. It heals without effort, because it comes from a place beyond the ego, a place where you are not trying to be anything, but simply allowing all that you are to be seen without resistance, without shame. This is the way of the observer, quiet, humble, free. And as you dwell more deeply in this space, you begin to notice something strange and beautiful. The world does not seem as threatening. The judgments that once stung lose their power. The need to defend, to prove, to posture it dissolves. Not because you don't care, but because you now see from a different altitude. You've risen above the storm. Not in arrogance, but in clarity. You begin to feel compassion not just for others, but for yourself. You see the times you forgot your light, and you forgive. You see the moments you lashed out, the fears you obeyed, the love you withheld, not with shame, but with understanding. The observer does not punish. It recognizes, it accepts, and in that acceptance, it liberates. This is the gentle revolution of awakening. Nothing outside you needs to change for peace to arise. It is not in changing the world, but in changing how you see the world that transformation takes root. And seeing as the observer is the highest form of vision, it is clear, unclouded, anchored in truth. The great mystics have spoken of this place. They've called it the kingdom within, the uncarved block, the still point in a turning world. And you have touched it too, perhaps in a moment of silence, in the pause between heartbeats, in the breath that caught your soul in wonder. It is not new, it is eternal. And it is calling you now, not with urgency, but with unwavering love. You do not need to understand it with the mind, you only need to experience it. Let yourself become empty enough to feel it. Let go of the arguments, the conclusions, the need to be right, the need to be understood. The observer has no need for such things, for it knows what cannot be spoken. So become the silence, become the presence, become the one who watches, not to judge, not to control, but simply to love more deeply. And as you live from this place, life will no longer be a struggle against the current. It will become a communion with it. You will not swim upstream, you will float, trust, surrender. And in that surrender, you will discover the deepest paradox of all. The less you try to control, the more you are carried exactly where you need to be. Because life is not against you. It is not testing you. It is reflecting you. And when the reflection is clear, when your seeing is pure, when your heart is open, the entire world becomes your teacher. Every leaf becomes a scripture. Every breath becomes a prayer. Every moment becomes an opportunity to remember you are not the experience. You are the one who sees it. You are the observer of the universe, and that, beloved soul, is your true power. In the sacred stillness of your awareness, you begin to feel something ancient awakening, not a memory, but a knowing. It does not come from the mind, it rises from beneath it. It is the recognition that you were never truly bound by the stories you've lived, the identities you've worn, or the pain you've carried. You were the presence that allowed them all to unfold. You were the space through which the river of life moved, not the debris it carried. And once this knowing takes root, even the most ingrained fear begins to lose its grip. Because how can fear control the one who sees it as passing weather? How can shame define the one who watches without flinching? You stop being entangled in the stories of the world and you begin to walk above them, not detached, but elevated, not better, but clearer. There is a quiet nobility in those who live from this place. They speak softly, but their presence echoes. They do not need to win arguments, because they are not lost in the noise of opposition. They do not need to defend their truth, because their truth is not an idea, it is a state of being. They do not preach, they radiate, they do not convert, they invite. They are not pulled by appearances, they rest in essence. And so you begin to listen differently, not just with your ears, but with your soul. You listen to the silence beneath the words. You listen to the emotion beneath the posture. You listen not to respond, but to understand. And in that listening, you become a sanctuary, not just for others, but for yourself. You become the safe place you've always longed for. Not because life stopped hurting, but because you stopped abandoning yourself when it did. This is the ultimate return, not to an idea, but to your own sacred center. The space within you that does not flinch when the world shakes. The space that watches the storm, not from fear, but from reverence. That watches joy, not from clinging, but from awe. That watches change, not as loss, but as the dance of form within the field of the formless. You see, when you live as the observer, you do not deny emotion, you give it space to be. You do not suppress the waves, you recognize that they cannot touch the ocean floor. You are that floor, unshakable, steady, silent. And because of that, you can hold the waves with compassion instead of resistance. You can feel without drowning. You can experience without becoming. This is the great spiritual art, not to escape life, but to embrace it without identification, to move through the world as a clear mirror, reflecting truth without distortion, to love with fullness but without possession, to serve with humility but without the hunger for approval, to walk with purpose but without the weight of needing to prove your worth. You already are. You always have been. Your worth is not an equation. It is a constant. It is the light that cannot be increased by praise or diminished by criticism. And once you know this, not as a concept, but as a lived reality, you become immovable in the most graceful way. You no longer reach for fleeting highs, because the highest joy is presence. You no longer avoid the lows, because even pain becomes a portal to deeper awareness. You no longer seek outside, because everything you were searching for was hidden in plain sight in the silent witness that's been with you through every breath, every tear, every heartbeat. The observer is not outside of you. It is not a skill to master. It is your original nature, the one you had before you were named, before you were shamed. Before you were shaped into what the world needed you to be, it is the you that watched it all unfold without ever being diminished by it. And now, it is time to return. Return not with regret, but with reverence. Return not as a seeker, but as the light returning to itself. Return not to escape the world, but to finally see it clearly from the place within you that is untouched by its noise. Because the most powerful being in the universe is not the one who controls all things. It is the one who sees all things and remains at peace. You are not here to control life. You are here to remember that you are life. And when you do, the need to strive dissolves. The need to be seen vanishes. The need to hold on loosens. And all that remains is what was always there. Presence, clarity, peace, and a quiet joy that no circumstance can touch. Then we walk further now, deeper into the garden of your soul, where no footsteps have echoed in years, where the wind carries ancient songs your mind has forgotten, but your being still remembers. You begin to recognize that most of your life has not been lived, it has been reacted to. And yet, beneath every reaction, behind every grasping thought, there was always a silent choice waiting to be made. The choice not to cling, but to notice. Not to resist, but to breathe. Not to fear the fire, but to sit beside it and feel its warmth without leaping into its flames. As the observer, you do not suppress the fire, you learn its language. You no longer shout over your pain, you bow your head and listen to its wisdom. For there is a holiness in discomfort that the ego will never understand. Only the soul knows that wounds are not punishments, they are portals. They tear through illusion, not to harm, but to reveal what was too sacred to be seen before. And it is here, in this quiet recognition, that the layers begin to shed, not by force, but by grace. You do not need to strip them away. You need only to stand still and let the false identities melt in the warmth of your presence. The one who is watching has no need for masks. The one who is aware has no interest in defending what is not true. In this way, even solitude becomes sacred, no longer a space of lack, but of communion. You begin to see that loneliness was never the absence of others, it was the absence of your own attention. But now, with your awareness anchored, the room fills with light. You become your own company, and it is enough, more than enough. It is beautiful. From this stillness, love flows not as an emotion, but as an essence. It does not depend on closeness or agreement. It radiates. It expands through you and touches even those you will never meet. For the observer is not confined by distance. It sees the interconnected thread of all things. It knows that the joy you awaken in your heart today will ripple outward, reaching someone across oceans, across time, across lives. You are not bound by your body. You are not limited to your name. These are temporary vessels for the eternal awareness that you are. And once you begin to feel this, not believe it, but feel it, a kind of quiet awe arises. The kind of awe that makes the sky seem closer and your breath feel like a prayer. Time begins to lose its grip. You stop measuring life by clocks and calendars. Instead, you measure by presence, by how deeply you inhabit the moment, by how open your heart is when you hold the gaze of a stranger, by how silently you can sit and still feel whole. This is not escapism, this is deeper embodiment. You are no longer acting from the surface, you are living from the depths. And in the depths, all labels fall away. There is no man or woman, no success or failure, no right or wrong. There is only the unfolding. And you, the observer, are not here to judge the unfolding. You are here to bear witness to its beauty. The river does not argue with the rock. It flows around it. The sky does not mourn the falling of leaves. It holds them in their descent. In the same way, the awakened observer does not resist what comes, it allows. It does not cling to what goes, it blesses. And in this allowing, in this soft surrender, life opens itself in ways the mind could never plan. What you once called miracles become natural. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable, not because the external changed, but because you have ceased to block the flow of what was always meant for you. Your only task now is to stay open, to remain soft, to stay with the breath, the body, the moment, to listen to the silence beneath the surface of things. And as you do, the most tender truth begins to reveal itself, not as a lightning bolt, but as a whisper. It tells you that you are not here to fix the world. You are here to love it more clearly. You are not here to escape the illusion. You are here to see through it, with eyes that do not judge and a heart that does not close. For the observer has no agenda, only awareness, no expectation, only presence. And in this presence, even the hardest truths become bearable. Even the deepest grief becomes sacred. Even death itself becomes not an ending, but a transformation, a movement from form back into essence. This is the rhythm of all life. Appear, dissolve, return, arise, release, begin again. And through it all, you remain not as the character, but as the screen. Not as the wind, but as the space it moves through, untouched, unchanged, eternal. There comes a point in this sacred remembering where you no longer ask, why is this happening to me? The question dissolves not because you found the answer, but because you no longer need one. The observer does not seek explanation, it rests in observation. It watches the mountain rise from the plain, the storm gather on the horizon, and it does not panic. It trusts the design even when the mind does not understand the architect's hand. And slowly, the fear of not knowing begins to lift. You no longer scramble to fill the silence. You begin to sense that in the quiet there is a language far older than words, a wisdom that speaks not through instruction, but through vibration. Not through answers, but through alignment. And in this alignment, a deeper intelligence takes over, an intelligence that orchestrates galaxies without effort and heals the broken without rush. You are a part of that intelligence. You do not need to earn your place in it, you are born of it. Your worth is not a matter of debate, it is embedded in the atoms of your being. The same force that ignites the stars pulses through your veins. And once you truly feel this, not as an idea, but as a living reality, you begin to walk the earth differently. You walk slower. You breathe deeper. You look at a tree and see not bark and leaves, but a living sermon in stillness. You look into a stranger's eyes and feel not separation, but recognition. The observer in you sees the observer in them. The masks may differ, but the gaze is the same, timeless, boundless, divine. And in this gaze, the urge to judge begins to soften. You see that judgment was never a reflection of others, it was a veil over your own heart. But now, you no longer need to hold others at arm's length to feel safe. The observer needs no defenses. It sees clearly and loves anyway. This love, born of awareness, is not a feeling that comes and goes. It is not conditional on mood or merit. It is the default state of a being who no longer sees separation. It is the love of the sun for the flower, expecting nothing in return. It is the love of the wind through the reeds, playing a song and asking no applause. And when you live from this place, your very presence becomes healing. Not because of what you say, but because of what you no longer resist. You stop projecting your shadows onto others and begin to reclaim them as lost children, ready to return home. You stop seeing conflict as something to win and begin to view it as a mirror asking you to remember what you've forgotten. The observer does not get lost in drama. It sees the wound beneath the rage, the fear behind the mask, the cry for connection beneath the attack. It holds space instead of taking space. It listens beyond the noise. And in that listening, healing happens not because it was forced, but because it was allowed. This is the alchemy of attention. When you stop reacting and start witnessing, everything begins to transform, not by effort, but by presence. The things you used to chase begin to arrive. The things you used to resist begin to dissolve. The world no longer feels like a battlefield, it becomes a temple. And in this temple, every experience becomes sacred. Every failure becomes a teacher. Every ending becomes a gate. There is nothing to escape, nothing to regret, nothing to fix. There is only the unfolding and the awareness that beholds it. The more you dwell in this state, the less you need from the world. Not because you have become indifferent, but because you have become whole. Wholeness does not beg, it blesses. It does not compete, it creates. It does not grasp, it gives. And so your life becomes a giving, not of effort, but of essence. Not a performance, but a presence. You no longer try to change the world with force, you change it with the stillness that moves through you like breath through a flute. This stillness, it is not an absence, it is a fullness. that holds everything without clinging to anything. It is not passive, it is the most powerful state a human can enter. For in stillness you are no longer the wave, you are the ocean remembering itself. And the ocean does not panic when the waves rise. It does not mourn when they fall. It's simply island deep, expansive, whole. So be the ocean. Be the one who sees. Be the presence in which all things rise and fall and remain unchanged. You are no longer standing outside yourself, peering in with judgment or longing. You have entered the temple of your own awareness, and it has welcomed you home without question. The path that once seemed far and winding was not a path at all. It was a spiral inward, circling not toward a destination, but toward a depth. And now that you've arrived, not somewhere new, but somewhere ancient within you, you remember there was never anything missing. Even the questions that drove you here, the ache to be understood, the hunger to belong, the need to find meaning, they dissolve like mist in morning light. Not because they were wrong, but because they have been fulfilled, not by answers, but by presence. And now you are that presence. The one who no longer rushes to speak because they have nothing to prove. The one who no longer hides in the noise because they are not afraid of their own silence. The one who no longer clings to form because they have fallen in love with the formless. And in this stillness, the world reveals itself anew. You see through the veil of appearances and begin to touch the fabric beneath all things. The joy of a child's laugh, the weight of another's sorrow, the light in the eyes of a stranger, they all carry the same essence now. Nothing is separate. Nothing is other. You have become the field in which all duality dissolves. And so you walk not away from the world, but through it, as one who no longer needs to grasp or resist. You walk like water moves, gentle, unstoppable, true. You bring peace not by speaking of it, but by being it. You become the eye of the storm, not untouched by life, but unshaken by it. You become trustworthy in the way rivers are, you carry things without holding them. You become generous in the way trees are, you give shade without asking who is worthy. You become luminous in the way stars are, not because you strive to shine, but because you've stopped dimming your light. This is the gift of the observer. You are no longer fused with the story, and so you are free to love the story, to live it fully, but not be consumed by it. And when you are no longer consumed by your own story, something sacred happens. You become a safe place for others to awaken. Not through teaching, but through presence. You look at them and do not see their masks or mistakes. You see their essence. You see what they have forgotten. And your gaze becomes a mirror, silently saying, you are already enough. You are already home. This is how the world is healed, not all at once, not through revolution, but through remembrance. One soul at a time, returning to the observer, returning to truth, returning to love. So now, let this be your vow, not to strive, not to improve, not to become someone else, but to remain. Remain with your breath. Remain with your truth. Remain in the stillness that sees, that accepts, that loves without condition. Remain as the one who watches not with detachment, but with divine compassion. And in your remaining life will unfold, not because you forced it, but because you no longer stood in its way. You are the observer of the universe, not merely a participant. You are the sky that holds every storm and every sunrise, the silent witness to all beginnings and all ends, the presence that cannot be burned, broken, or lost. And now you remember, now you rest, now you are free. There comes a moment, subtle and sacred, when the noise of striving grows so loud that it collapses into silence. And in that silence, a deeper voice begins to rise, not with urgency, not with command, but with a gentle certainty that seems to know your name before you were named. It is the whisper of the divine, and it has been waiting for you. You do not have to find this voice. You do not have to earn its blessing or perfect yourself into its favor. You need only ask. And then you must let go. Ask the divine, not as a plea to a distant deity, but as a returning to your own infinite source. Ask not from the ego, which calculates and schemes, but from the soul, which already understands. When you ask from this place, from the stillness, from the surrender, your very question becomes a prayer, and your willingness to release becomes the doorway to miracles. But the mind will resist. It will whisper, plan, control, strive. It will tell you that the divine must be micromanaged, must be instructed on how and when and why to deliver. The ego does not trust the unseen. It is terrified by surrender. And yet surrender is the only real power you have. To ask the divine and then to let go is to say, I trust the intelligence that spins galaxies to also spin my life with perfect rhythm. It is to understand that the same breath that moves through the trees moves through you, and it needs no direction from your fear. It only needs your openness. We have been taught that control is strength, that faith is weakness, that surrender is for those who have no other options. But I tell you now, surrender is the fiercest kind of faith. It is the boldest declaration of trust. It is the quiet revolution that turns striving into grace. When you ask, ask with your whole being, not from desperation, but from alignment. Not because you are lacking, but because you are remembering your connection to something vaster than form. Speak to the divine not as an outsider, knocking on a door, but as the light within the lamp, igniting your own inner flame. And once you have asked, let go. Release your grip on the how, the when, the outcome. Do not dig up the seed to check if it is growing. Water it with trust. Expose it to the sunlight of surrender. Then walk away, knowing that what is meant for you cannot miss you. And what misses you was never yours. This is the sacred paradox. To receive, you must release. To manifest, you must surrender. To create space for the miraculous, you must stop trying to architect every detail of your destiny. You must become available to the unknown. Letting go is not abandonment. It is not indifference. It is not giving up. It is the most profound act of participation. It is participation without resistance. It is saying, I will show up, I will take aligned action, but I will not carry the weight of what I cannot control. I will let the divine decide the form. I will let life have its way with me. The Tao Te Ching reminds us that when nothing is done, nothing is left undone. This is not about passivity, it is about alignment. It is about allowing the river to carry you rather than exhausting yourself by swimming upstream. It is about becoming the reed, not the dam, the hollow flute, not the forced melody. You are not here to choreograph every movement of your life. You are here to dance with the mystery, and mystery, the sacred unknown, only enters when the door of certainty is closed. When you relinquish the need to know, to prove, to force, you create a sanctuary for grace to enter. You step out of the illusion of control and into the power of co-creation. The ego will protest. It thrives on control, on certainty, on checklist, spirituality. But the soul moves like the wind, unseen, unpredictable, free. The soul does not demand answers. It only asks that you stay open, that you stay willing, that you trust the silence between the words. Ask the divine. Then let go. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the idea that you know better than the infinite intelligence that formed you from stardust and breath. Let go of the belief that your worth is dependent on what happens next. You are not being tested, you are being guided. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. You are not being ignored. You are being realigned. But you can only hear this if you are quiet. You can only feel this if you are willing to stop clutching at certainty like a drowning man clutches at driftwood. You must release to rise. Even Jesus in the garden did not demand. He asked and then surrendered, not my will but thine, not as an act of submission, but as an act of union. To let go is to remember that you are not separate from the divine. You are not a beggar at the gates of heaven. You are the presence of heaven, awakening within itself. You don't need to convince the divine to bless you. You only need to become a vessel for the blessing. And you do that through trust, through presence, through surrender. Ask the divine, yes. Ask boldly. Ask with joy. Ask with tears in your eyes if you must. But then release. Release the anxiety. Release the clenching. Release the narrative that says, if I don't control this, everything will fall apart. Everything will fall into place the moment you stop trying to force it. What is for you will unfold in ways more perfect than you could ever plan. What is meant to be yours will arrive not through grasping, but through grace. Not by proving your worth, but by remembering it. Trust is not a concept, it is a practice. It is a moment-to-moment choice to open your hands when fear tells you to close them. It is a breath taken not in panic, but in presence. And in that breath, in that quiet surrender, the divine answers. Not always with what you expect, but always with what you need. Always with what your soul has secretly been longing for, even if your mind has not yet understood it. There is a great stillness beneath all the movement. There is a great wisdom beneath all the questions. And there is a great love waiting patiently behind every fear. So ask the divine. Speak your heart. Then let go. Let go as if the answer is already on its way, because it island. And let that knowing be enough. Letting go is not an act of abandonment, it is an act of sacred intimacy with life. It is to say to the universe, I trust you more than I trust my fears. It is to acknowledge that your limited mind cannot orchestrate what eternity already holds in its hands. So many walk through this life with clenched fists, gripping plans, expectations, identities, as if their very survival depends on the weight they carry. But the soul was never made to carry, it was made to flow. To let go is to unclench the fists, to open the palms, and to allow the current of divine timing to guide your days. You will not find freedom in control. You will not find peace in prediction. The peace you seek lives in your willingness to allow things to rise and fall, to allow people to come and go, to allow the mystery to move through you, not around you. And yes, allowing often means feeling the grief of detachment, feeling the ache of uncertainty, but beneath the ache is clarity. Beneath the surrender is serenity, and beneath the emptiness, something sacred is always born. Every time you let go, you are saying to life, I am ready for truth. Not the truth the world sells you, but the truth your soul has always whispered, and the truth is everything that is real will remain. Everything that is meant for you will find you, and everything that leaves was never the source of your peace to begin with. The ego mourns what is lost. The soul rejoices for what is revealed. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a way of being, a continuous releasing, a rhythm of trust. Each morning is a new opportunity to ask and surrender. Each moment invites a deeper bow, a deeper breath. And in this breath, you will find the guidance you thought you needed to chase. It does not come with noise or fanfare. It comes in silence. In the space between thoughts, in the pause between trying and trusting, you are not here to hold it all together. You are here to be held by something larger. You are not here to impress the world with your plans. You are here to embody the sacred humility of one who knows they are being led. And the path you are on, no matter how uncertain, no matter how winding, is not a mistake. It is the exact unfolding your soul requires to awaken from the illusion of control and fall into the embrace of surrender. Ask the divine. Then trust so deeply that you stop checking your watch. Trust so fully that your breath slows and your heart softens. Trust so completely that even when the answer takes a different shape than you imagined, you know somewhere deep within that it is still the answer. Because your soul does not crave outcomes. It craves alignment. It craves presence. It craves the sacred yes that rises not from the world, but from within. Do not confuse letting go with apathy. It is not indifference, it is the purest form of engagement. To act without attachment, to give without demand, to move with love, without needing the world to echo it back. That is the dance of the awakened. That is the surrender of the sage. It is not weakness, it is power in its highest form. The kind of power that does not shout, but transforms. The divine is not far from you. It is not waiting in the distance, behind your next achievement, or beneath your next transformation. It is here, closer than your breath, quieter than your fears. And it speaks most clearly when you stop trying to script your life and simply listen. It does not speak the language of force, it speaks the language of flow. And you, beloved soul, are made of that same flow. You are not a mistake, you are not forgotten, you are not being punished. You are being polished, returned, refined by the fire of surrender. And though the fire may feel hot, it does not destroy, it reveals. Every sacred text, every enlightened master, every ancient teaching has pointed to this truth. The more you cling, the more you suffer. The more you release, the more you rise. And so the practice is not to become stronger in the ways of the world, but softer in the ways of the soul. Softer, not weaker. Softer, because softness is what allows the divine to move through you unimpeded. It is what allows miracles to land where your resistance once stood. The miracle is not in the outcome. It is in the space you create when you let go. The space for something greater, something unseen, something wholly aligned with the real you, the you that was never broken, never separate, never needing to be fixed. And this space, this holy spaciousness, becomes a temple, a place where grace can land, a place where peace can dwell, a place where you can finally rest, not because everything is certain, but because you no longer require certainty to rest. You are not asked to understand the plan. You are asked to trust the planner. You are not asked to know the future. You are asked to be fully present to this moment, where the divine already lives. And in this moment, there is nothing lacking. In this breath, there is nothing to chase. In this stillness, there is only truth. So let go, and let life do what it came to do through you. Let the divine lead. And you, beloved, follow without fear, without resistance, without needing the map, because the path is not outside you. The path is you, and every step you take in trust reveals more of it. When you stop asking life to bend to your will and begin to bend yourself to the rhythm of life, a profound peace emerges, not the peace of predictability, but the peace of participation in something infinite. You begin to sense that your part is not to push the river, but to trust its current, you. Begin to feel that your role is not to steer the stars, but to let their light illuminate the path beneath your feet, one humble step at a time. This is where your freedom lives, not in certainty, not in achievement, but in communion with the unfolding, a communion that does not need to be explained or justified, a knowing that hums beneath the surface of thought, guiding you not with instructions, but with quiet invitations. It may come as a whisper in the early morning or a gentle tug in the center of your chest. Follow it, honor it, for it is not your mind's agenda, it is your soul's remembering. There is a deeper intelligence at work in your life, one that does not rush, does not panic, and never withholds. But it does require space, space between your thoughts, space between your plans, space between the noise of wanting and the silence of receiving. In that space, miracles move. In that space, the answer arises, not because you grasped it, but because you created room for it to arrive. To live surrendered is not to live small, it is to live vast, uncontained by the rigid edges of control. It is to wake each morning not asking, what must I fix, but rather, what am I ready to allow? It is to greet the unknown not as a threat, but as a doorway into deeper truth. And each time you walk through that doorway, the identity you once clung to dissolves a little more, revealing not less of you, but more of your essence. You are not here to become. You are here to remember. Not the memory of your name or your history or the roles you've played, but the remembrance of your divine origin. The quiet clarity that you did not come into this world as a problem to be solved, but as a presence to be expressed. And that expression cannot be forced. It must be invited. It must be given the space to rise like the dawn, unhurried, inevitable, and full of light. When you trust the divine, you begin to hear the world differently. The sound of rain becomes a language. The touch of wind feels like a message. The pause between heartbeats holds revelations that no book could ever contain. You start to sense the sacred not as something above you, but as something within you, moving outward in waves of kindness, stillness, and grace. There is no map for this path, because you are the map. There are no landmarks because your soul does not travel linearly. It spirals, it dances, it breathes. And each moment of letting go is not a detour, it is the very movement of awakening. You do not awaken by climbing ladders or mastering techniques. You awaken by becoming so deeply present that the illusion of separation falls away like old skin. What remains is presence. Not the presence of performance, but the presence of truth. And that truth, when lived without fear, becomes your offering to the world. Not a performance to impress, but a light to bless. You will not need to declare it. You will not need to defend it. You will simply live it, and those who are ready will feel it in your silence, in your softness, in the way you listen, and in the way you love, without needing anything in return. To ask the divine and then let go is the greatest act of courage, because it asks you to live without armor. It asks you to stand open in a world that often misunderstands stillness. But stillness is not weakness. It is strength without aggression. It is clarity without noise. It is love without condition. And in this stillness, you will begin to see not just the path before you, but the sacredness of each step. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are simply being shaped by a rhythm older than time. Let yourself be shaped. Let yourself be softened. Let yourself be emptied so that you may be filled not with plans, not with answers, but with the presence that has always been waiting for you to return. And return you shall not to a destination, but to yourself. There is a softness that begins to take root in you when you stop grasping at the future and begin resting in the grace of what island. This softness is not passivity, it is receptivity. It is the open field after the storm, not because the storm did not come, but because the earth remembered how to drink the rain. When you ask the divine and release your grip, you become like that field, ready to be nourished by whatever life pours in, even if the skies arrive heavy with clouds. We spend so many years believing that clarity must be chased, that purpose must be earned, that fulfillment is hidden behind the next mountain. But when you finally pause, truly pause, you discover that what you have been searching for never moved. It was always here, beneath the noise, beneath the striving, beneath the armor you wore to protect yourself from a world that kept whispering, you are not enough. But the divine never whispered that. The divine only sings one song, and it is always love. To let go is to return to that song. To drop the illusion that your worth depends on outcome. To stop bargaining with your own soul. There is no transaction in true spirituality. There is no trade. You do not need to become anything more to be worthy of guidance. You were woven from guidance. You were created from the very fabric of divine wisdom. Your breath is not separate from that which gives life to galaxies. And so when you ask, do not beg, do not shrink, do not lower your eyes in shame. Ask from the center of your being. Ask as the ocean asks the moon to pull her tides. Ask as the stars ask the darkness to hold their glow. And then like the tides, like the stars, surrender to your own rhythm. Let go of what you think should happen. Let go of how long it should take. Let go of who you must be to be loved. You are already loved. You are already held. You are already enough. There is a doorway inside you that can only be opened by silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. The silence that comes when you are no longer trying to be impressive, no longer trying to outthink your pain, no longer trying to outrun your past. In that silence, the divine speaks not in words, but in feeling. Not in commands, but in invitations. You will know this voice by how it makes you feel like you've come home. Even if everything around you still looks the same, the world will keep shouting. The ego will keep strategizing. But the soul waits in stillness. It does not interrupt. It does not compete. It simply stands like a lighthouse on the edge of your being, waiting for the fog to lift. And when you finally stop searching the horizon for signs, you turn inward, and there at island, that light, that calm, that knowing. It was never gone. You just forgot how to see in the dark. There is a holy unraveling that begins when you choose trust over tension. When you stop asking, what if everything falls apart, and start wondering, what if everything is falling together? The unraveling is not your end, it is your becoming. The shedding of false selves. The loosening of what was never really yours. And yes, it feels like loss. It feels like breaking. But you are not breaking. You are being opened. You are being carved out to make room for something vast, something eternal, something sacred. Letting go is not the same as giving up. It is the brave act of turning the page when the story no longer speaks truth. It is not weakness to release what no longer resonates. It is wisdom, it is strength, it is the deep bow of the soul to its own becoming. And each time you let go, you make space for something real to rise. Not a replacement, not a fix, but a remembering of what has always lived beneath the layers. The divine does not operate on deadlines. The soul does not hurry. And so your task is not to speed up, but to slow down, to feel the texture of now, to taste the moment before it passes. To breathe as though each breath is a conversation with God because life is not a task to complete. It is a mystery to be met with wonder. Do not wait for the conditions to be perfect. The perfect moment is always now. The perfect state is always presence. The perfect path is always the one beneath your feet. Ask the divine not to rescue you, but to remind you. Not to fix you, but to reveal you. Not to change the world around you, but to change the way you see it. And then let go. Let go of needing to know. Let go of needing to be right. Let go of the story that says your pain has no purpose. It does. It brought you here, to this breath, to this prayer, to this remembrance. You are not here to figure it all out. You are here to feel it all fully. You are here to love, not as a strategy, but as your natural state. You are here to trust, not as a last resort, but as your first language. And you are here to let go, not as an act of abandonment, but as an act of devotion. Because what the divine can do with your surrender, you could never do with your control. There is a moment sometimes disguised as heartbreak, sometimes cloaked in the ordinariness of a Tuesday afternoon when something ancient stirs in you, not a desire for more, but a longing for less noise, less proving, less attachment to things that cannot hold your wholeness. This longing is not lack, it is the voice of the divine reminding you that your essence was never meant to be buried beneath layers of striving. You are not a machine built to perform. You are a soul, luminous and vast, here to be experienced, not explained. The truth is, most of what you think you need to hold on to is already trying to leave. Not because you are being punished, but because you are being freed. Life is not trying to hurt you, it is trying to return you. And when it takes things from your grasp, it is only because your arms are too full to receive what you truly asked for. Letting go is the clearing of sacred ground. It is the sweeping of the temple floor so the altar of your being can be seen again. And yes, it can be terrifying. Because ego clings to familiarity. Even when the familiar is painful, it gives the illusion of control. But the soul craves expansion, and expansion requires space. And space cannot enter a life crowded with certainty. The divine does not call the brave because they are fearless. It calls them because they are willing to feel their fear and keep going. And that is what letting go is. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of something greater. A quiet yes to life's deeper rhythm. A surrender not to defeat, but to design. You are not surrendering because you've lost your power. You are surrendering because you finally found it. Imagine a tree refusing to release its autumn leaves, clutching every brittle remnant of what once was. What would happen? It would not survive the winter. It would not make room for new growth. It would become imprisoned by what is already dead. And yet, how often do we do the same? We cling to old identities, expired dreams, relationships we've outgrown, beliefs that were never truly ours, and we wonder why we feel so heavy. To ask the divine is to acknowledge your sacred place in the order of things. But to let go is to embody that truth. It is to say, I will not carry what no longer resonates with my soul's unfolding. I will not trade my peace for the illusion of control. I will not silence my intuition for the approval of a world that does not know the depth of my calling. There is a timing more ancient than your plans, a wisdom more intelligent than your logic. And when you stop interrupting it with your urgency, you begin to witness how perfectly life has always been orchestrating your return. Even the detours were part of the path. Even the wrong turns were sacred. The pain, the pause, the pathless nights, they were all holy hands molding your soul into a chalice spacious enough to hold divinity. And so the question is not, how can I make this happen? The question is, how can I become available to what is already trying to happen through me? The answer does not come in words, it comes in presence, in stillness, in the quiet decision to no longer force life to fit into your mind's idea of how it should unfold. You do not need to manifest a better version of reality. You need to become a clearer vessel for what is already here. Letting go does not mean you stop dreaming. It means you stop chasing. It means you stop needing your dreams to arrive on your terms and begin trusting that their fulfillment might look different, feel deeper, and arrive with more grace than you ever imagined. It means you walk toward your desires with open hands and a surrendered heart, knowing that anything born from force will never satisfy the soul. You are not here to conquer the world. You are here to love it back into harmony, starting with yourself. You are not here to predict every twist of the journey. You are here to walk it with reverence. Each step, a bow. Each breath, a prayer. Each release, a blessing. And when you do this, when you truly let go, you become the field where grace lands. Not the grace of reward, but the grace of remembrance. The sacred recognition that everything you need has already been woven into your being. The peace, the joy, the wisdom, it is not something to achieve, it is something to uncover. The more you release what you are not, the more your true self rises not as a performance, but as a presence. And that presence heals, not because it tries, but because it shines without seeking. It breathes without needing to impress. It lives without permission. It loves without boundaries. This is the miracle that follows surrender. You stop trying to be the light, and you remember that you already are. There comes a stillness, not at the conclusion of striving, but in the quiet realization that nothing was ever missing. A stillness that does not ask for applause or recognition or even understanding, only your presence. And in that presence, you meet yourself again. Not the version you curated for the world, not the identity shaped by circumstance or success, but the one who was always here, always watching, always loving, even when you forgot, you asked, you released, and now you remember. Remember that every breath was a prayer, even the broken ones. Remember that every detour was a redirection to truth. Remember that every silence was filled with guidance. And most of all, remember this: the divine never needed your perfection, only your participation, only your trust, only your willingness to put down the sword, to unlace the armor, to open the palms of your being and say, I am ready not to control, but to be carried. There is no higher strength than surrender, no greater wisdom than trust, and no deeper power than allowing the unseen to move through you like breath, like wind, like grace. You are not a vessel to be filled, you are a current to be felt. You are the breeze that bends without breaking, the flame that flickers but never dies. Do not wait to feel certain before you walk forward. Walk now with the trembling still in your bones. Walk now, even if your heart beats like a drum of unanswered questions. Walk because the path is made by walking, not by knowing. Walk because the divine is not waiting at the end of your journey. The divine is in each step, in each doubt you release, in each tear you bless, in each moment you surrender your need to know and simply allow yourself to be guided. To ask the divine and let go is not a spiritual technique, it is a sacred relationship, one born of reverence, not ritual, of intimacy, not obligation. It is the soft conversation that continues long after the words stop. It is the presence that walks with you through the chaos, never judging, only whispering, stay with me, trust me, you are not alone, and you are not now, not ever. Even when you feel empty, the divine is pouring light into your hollows. Even when the answers do not come, the silence is forming a deeper truth. Even when the waiting feels endless, the unseen is preparing you to receive not just what you wanted, but what your soul was born to hold. There will be days when you forget again, days when fear returns like an old tide and tries to pull you back into the sea of striving. Let it come, let it touch you, but do not swim in it. Return to the shore of trust, return to the breath, return to the stillness you now know so well. You do not need to be fearless to be free. You only need to choose trust again and again and again until it becomes your nature. Until the letting go is no longer an effort, but a rhythm. Until surrender becomes your sanctuary. Until your very being says to life, I am open, and in that openness, the divine will move. Not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you most deeply need. It may come as laughter, as peace, as a sudden knowing, as a long-awaited answer, as a presence that holds you when no words can. It will come, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped standing in the way. You asked, you let go. And now the miracle that is your own being can rise unhindered, unburdened, unbound. The miracle is not what happens outside you. It is the awakening within you. And that awakening has no ending. It only deepens. It only expands. It only continues to bless. So breathe, bow, smile, and walk forward not because you have all the answers, but because you now know the one who does. You are not alone. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are the answer rising from within. And now that you've let go, you are free.